Picture this. You're sitting at home on an ordinary Tuesday evening when suddenly everything just stops. The hum of your refrigerator cuts out mid-cycle. Your phone screen goes black and won't respond to anything. The streetlights outside flicker once and die. Even your car won't start when you turn the key. Dead silence everywhere. No power grid, no internet, no cell towers broadcasting anything at all. This isn't your typical power outage where you wait a few hours for the utility company to flip some switches. This is total system failure. Every piece of modern technology around you has been fried in seconds by something most people have never heard of but should absolutely fear. But here's what separates the prepared from the panicked. While everyone else is stumbling around in the dark wondering what happened, there's a small group of people who saw this coming. They didn't spend thousands of dollars on fancy survival gear that might not even work when it matters most. Instead, they focused on something much smarter. Simple, cheap, everyday items that don't rely on electricity, don't need software updates, and can't be knocked out by any electromagnetic surge. These are the tools that will keep you alive and functioning when the modern world goes silent. Today, I'm walking you through 10 household items that cost almost nothing, but could save your life after an EMP event. We're talking about gear you can pick up at any hardware store or online retailer for under $20 each. No military surplus required, no special training needed, just simple, reliable tools that work exactly the same whether the power's on or off. And by the end of this video, you'll know exactly what to stock up on and how to use each item when your neighbors are still wondering why their smart home isn't so smart anymore. Let's start with something so basic that most people overlook it completely. Number 1, manual can openers. Right now, walk to your kitchen and check your drawers. I guarantee most of you have an electric can opener plugged into the wall or some fancy battery-powered version that makes opening cans feel effortless. But what happens when those batteries die and there's nowhere to recharge them? What happens when that electric motor burns out and the repair shops are all closed indefinitely? You're stuck staring at shelves full of canned food that might as well be locked in a vault. Here's something that might shock you. According to recent consumer surveys, over 70% of American households don't own a single manual can opener. We've become so dependent on powered devices that we forgot how to do basic tasks with our own hands. Meanwhile, your grandparents could open a can of beans with a simple metal tool that hasn't changed design in over a century. No moving parts, no batteries, no electronics to fry. Just leverage and a sharp edge that works every single time. Think about your food storage right now. How many canned goods are sitting in your pantry? Vegetables, soups, meats, fruits, everything sealed up and ready to eat. In a long-term blackout scenario, those cans represent weeks or months of nutrition, but only if you can actually get inside them. A quality manual can opener cost less than $5 and will outlast any electronic version by decades. Get one with a comfortable grip and a sharp cutting wheel. Test it on a few cans to make sure it works smoothly. Then store it somewhere you can find it in the dark, because when the lights go out for good, you don't want to be fumbling around looking for basic tools. Number 2, mechanical alarm clocks. When was the last time you used an actual alarm clock instead of your phone? For most people, the answer is never. We've handed over one of our most basic daily functions to devices that need constant charging and wireless signals to work properly. But in a grid-down world, time doesn't stop. You still need to wake up, still need to keep schedules, still need to coordinate with other people. The difference is your smartphone becomes a dead brick, and digital clocks are worthless without electricity. A wind-up alarm clock needs nothing but occasional winding to keep perfect time for months. No batteries to replace, no power cord to plug in, no software that can glitch out at the worst possible moment. These mechanical marvels were keeping people on schedule long before electricity was invented, and they'll keep working long after the grid goes down. You can find reliable wind-up clocks at thrift stores, antique shops, or online for under $15. Look for ones with loud bells and clear faces that you can read in low light. Here's why this matters more than you think. In a crisis situation, maintaining routines and schedules becomes crucial for mental health and group coordination. If you're working with neighbors to secure your area, gather supplies, or coordinate watch duties, everyone needs to know what time it is. The person with a working clock becomes the timekeeper for the entire community. Plus, there's something psychologically comforting about hearing that familiar tick-tock sound when everything else has gone silent. It reminds you that some things still work, that order still exists, that you're still in control of at least some aspects of your daily life. Number 3, manual pencil sharpeners. In our digital world, most communication happens through screens and keyboards. But when those screens go dark permanently, we go back to the oldest information technology ever invented: paper and pencil. No charging required, no network connection needed, no software updates that break everything. Just graphite on paper, the same way humans have been recording information for centuries. But here's the thing about pencils: they get dull. And in a world without electric sharpeners, that small detail becomes a major problem. You might have boxes of pencils stockpiled, but if you can't keep them sharp, they become nearly useless for detailed writing or drawing. A quality manual pencil sharpener costs less than $3 and will keep your writing tools functional indefinitely. Get the kind that mounts to a wall or table for stability, with multiple sized holes for different pencil types. Why does this matter? Because communication and record keeping become critical survival skills when normal systems break down. You need to track food supplies, medical information, guard schedules, weather patterns, important locations, and contact information for other survivors. Maps drawn by hand could mean the difference between finding safe shelter and wandering into danger. Written messages might be your only way to communicate over distances when radios fail. In a post-EMP world, the person who can write clearly and keep accurate records becomes invaluable to any group trying to rebuild. Number 4, mechanical kitchen scales. Most modern scales run on batteries or plug into the wall, with digital displays that show precise measurements down to the gram. Convenient when the power's on, completely useless when it's not. But in a survival scenario, being able to accurately measure food, medicine, and other supplies becomes crucial for rationing and health management. Guess too much on medication dosages and you could poison someone. Guess too little on food portions and you run out of supplies before you expected. A mechanical balance scale uses no power source except gravity and springs. These simple devices have been accurately measuring weight for thousands of years, and they'll keep working long after every digital scale has died. You can find small mechanical kitchen scales online for around $12, and they're accurate enough for any survival situation you'll face. Here's where this gets really practical. When you're managing food supplies for your family or a group, portion control becomes a matter of life and death. Too generous with portions early on, and you starve later. Too stingy, and people become weak and unable to handle physical tasks that keep everyone alive. A mechanical scale lets you divide food fairly and accurately, preventing conflicts that tear groups apart during stressful times. Plus, if you're growing your own food or foraging, you need to measure harvest to plan for preservation and storage. How much salt do you need for curing meat? How much flour for bread that'll last the week? These aren't guessing games when supplies are limited. The family with accurate measurement tools eats consistently while others feast and famine unpredictably. Number 5, manual coffee grinder. Now you might think coffee is a luxury you can't afford to worry about in an emergency, but here's what experienced preppers understand that most people miss. Coffee isn't just about comfort, though that psychological boost shouldn't be underestimated. Coffee beans store much longer than ground coffee, sometimes years longer if kept properly sealed. Whole beans resist spoilage, maintain flavor, and take up less storage space than pre-ground alternatives. A manual coffee grinder lets you turn those long-term storage beans into fresh, drinkable coffee whenever you need it. No electricity required, just a hand crank and a few minutes of effort. You can find quality manual grinders for around $20 that'll last decades with basic maintenance. But the real value goes beyond just making coffee. Think about trade and bartering in a collapsed economy. What do you think stressed, exhausted people crave most after weeks without their daily caffeine fix? Fresh coffee becomes incredibly valuable, potentially worth more than gold per pound in the right circumstances. The person who can produce fresh coffee grounds has a commodity that everyone wants and nobody else can provide. You could trade small amounts of ground coffee for food, medicine, tools, or services that keep your family alive. And there's another angle most people never consider. Coffee grounds aren't just for drinking. Used grounds work as fertilizer for gardens, helping you grow food when grocery stores are empty memories. They repel certain insects and pests that could destroy crops. They can even be used for cleaning and scrubbing when soap becomes scarce. A manual grinder turns coffee beans into a multi-purpose survival resource that keeps producing value long after the original drink is consumed. Number 6. Mechanical egg beater. When the power grid dies, your electric mixer becomes decorative kitchen art. But cooking doesn't stop just because appliances quit working. In fact, cooking becomes more important than ever when you're preparing meals from basic ingredients, instead of grabbing processed foods off supermarket shelves. And sometimes you need to mix ingredients thoroughly, whether you're making bread, scrambled eggs, or combining medical preparations. A mechanical egg beater costs under $10 and works exactly the same way it did 100 years ago. Gears and rotating beaters powered by nothing but your hand turning a crank. Simple, reliable, and impossible to break unless you really try. When you're making bread from scratch because bakeries don't exist anymore, proper mixing means the difference between edible food and wasted ingredients you can't afford to lose. But here's the bigger picture. Cooking from basic ingredients requires different techniques than reheating frozen dinners. You need to understand how to combine flour, eggs, and other staples into meals that provide proper nutrition. The tools that help you cook effectively become essential for long-term survival. A mechanical beater lets you prepare foods that boost morale, provide variety, and keep everyone healthier than just eating plain canned goods day after day. Number 7. Spring-loaded kitchen tongs. Your hands are useful tools, but they have obvious limitations when dealing with hot surfaces, sharp objects, or unsanitary conditions. Electric appliances usually handle these problems for us. Automatic toasters, microwave ovens, heated serving trays that keep food warm without burning fingers. But when those conveniences disappear, you need simple tools that extend your reach and protect your hands from injury. Spring-loaded tongs require no power source and work in any environment. Cooking over an open fire, which you'll probably be doing more often than you'd like, becomes much safer when you can manipulate food without getting burned. Moving hot coals to adjust cooking temperature, retrieving items from boiling water, handling materials that might be contaminated or dangerous to touch directly. Quality stainless steel tongs cost around $8 and last forever with minimal care. But beyond cooking, they serve dozens of other purposes in a grid-down scenario. Picking up debris after storms without cutting yourself on glass or metal. Retrieving items from tight spaces where hands won't fit. Even self-defense in extreme situations where you need to keep dangerous animals or people at arm's length. The key is getting tongs with strong springs and secure grips. Test them by picking up various objects to make sure they close firmly and won't drop things at critical moments. When you're cooking the only hot meal your family will get that day, dropping food in the fire isn't just disappointing, it's genuinely dangerous to everyone's nutrition and morale. Number 8. Manual pasta maker. Carbohydrates provide essential energy for physical work, and when the power's out, everything becomes physical work. Chopping wood, hauling water, maintaining security, growing food, all of it demands calories that your body converts from carbs. Pasta is one of the most efficient ways to turn basic flour and eggs into filling, nutritious meals that stick to your ribs and provide sustained energy. Electric pasta machines make the process effortless, but they're useless when electricity becomes a memory. A manual pasta maker uses simple mechanics to roll dough thin and cut it into consistent shapes. Hand crank operation means it works anywhere, anytime. As long as you've got ingredients and muscle power, you can find reliable manual pasta makers for around $15 that'll produce restaurant-quality results with little practice. Here's why this matters beyond just making spaghetti. Flour stores much longer than prepared pasta and takes up less space in your emergency supplies. But eating plain flour isn't exactly appetizing or nutritionally complete. A pasta maker lets you convert stored flour into varied, satisfying meals that keep morale high during difficult times. Different shapes, different thicknesses, combined with whatever vegetables or proteins you can find. Plus, fresh pasta cooks faster than dried versions, saving fuel that might be in short supply. When you're cooking over wood fires or camp stoves with limited fuel, every minute of cooking time matters. Fresh pasta also tastes significantly better than anything that's been sitting in storage for months, providing psychological comfort that helps people stay positive when everything else seems hopeless. Number 9. Hand crank ice cream maker. Now this might sound like pure luxury when we're talking survival, but hear me out. When the power grid collapses and refrigeration becomes impossible, preserving dairy products becomes a serious challenge. Milk spoils within hours without cooling. Cream goes bad even faster. But if you can turn those perishable dairy products into ice cream, you've just extended their useful life while creating something that boosts morale when people need it most. A manual ice cream maker costs around $18 and works using the same principle that's been around for centuries. Ice, salt, and constant churning create the temperature differential needed to freeze cream into ice cream. No electricity, no complicated machinery, just physics and elbow grease. But the real genius isn't just making dessert when dessert seems impossible. Think about the psychological impact. It's been 3 weeks since the lights went out. Everyone's stressed, scared, running on basic survival mode. Then someone produces actual ice cream made from scratch. Suddenly people remember what it feels like to enjoy something instead of just enduring everything. That mental shift from despair to hope can literally keep groups together when tensions are running high and people are considering going their separate ways. And here's something most people never consider. Ice cream making requires ice, which means you need a reliable way to freeze water. But once you've figured out ice production, whether through winter weather or improvised cooling methods, you've solved a much bigger problem. You can preserve meat, keep medicines cold, and store other perishables that would otherwise spoil immediately. The ice cream maker becomes your proof of concept for food preservation systems that keep everyone healthier and better fed. Number 10. Mechanical meat grinder. When grocery stores become empty buildings and butcher shops are distant memories, your relationship with meat changes completely. You're not buying pre-cut steaks and ground beef anymore. You're dealing with whole animals, whether from hunting, livestock, or bartering with neighbors who raise their own food. And if you can't process that meat properly, you're wasting protein that could mean the difference between thriving and barely surviving. A manual meat grinder transforms tough cuts and scraps into usable ground meat for burgers, sausages, and dozens of other recipes. No electricity required, just a sturdy clamp-on mechanism and a hand crank that gives you complete control over texture and consistency. Quality manual grinders cost around $25 and will process hundreds of pounds of meat over their lifetime with basic maintenance. But here's where this gets really practical. When you're processing an entire deer or pig, you can't eat it all fresh before it spoils. Ground meat mixes easily with salt and spices for curing and preservation. It cooks faster than whole cuts, saving precious fuel. It stretches further when combined with vegetables and grains, feeding more people from the same amount of animal protein. Plus, grinding your own meat gives you complete control over what goes into your food. No mystery additives, no chemicals you can't pronounce, no concerns about contamination from industrial processing facilities that may not even exist anymore. You know exactly what you're eating because you controlled every step from animal to plate. The grinding process also lets you use parts of animals that would otherwise go to waste. Tough connective tissue, organ meats, scraps that seem too small to bother with individually. All of it becomes valuable protein when processed properly. In a world where every calorie counts, waste isn't just inefficient, it's genuinely dangerous to your family's long-term survival. Now here's what separates people who make it through disasters from those who don't. It's not about having the most expensive gear or the biggest stockpile of supplies. It's about understanding that resilience comes from mastering simple systems that don't depend on complex infrastructure. Every item we've covered today represents a step away from helpless dependency and toward genuine self-sufficiency. These aren't just tools, they're insurance policies against a future that's becoming less predictable every year. Solar storms are intensifying. Cyber attacks on power grids are increasing. Political tensions that could trigger EMP weapons are rising globally. The question isn't whether our electrical grid will face serious challenges, it's when and how severe those challenges will be. But while everyone else worries about things they can't control, you're taking action on things you can control. You're building capability that works regardless of what breaks down around you. You're developing skills that become more valuable as technology becomes less reliable. And the beautiful thing about mechanical tools is they're not just backup plans. They're often better than their electric counterparts in ways that matter. They're quieter, so you don't announce your presence to people who might want what you have. They're more durable, lasting decades instead of years. They're easier to repair when something does break, using basic materials instead of specialized electronic components that don't exist anymore. Most importantly, they work at your pace, not at the pace some engineer decided was optimal. You control the speed, the pressure, the timing of every operation. That control becomes crucial when precision matters and mistakes have serious consequences. So what happens next? You could bookmark this video and forget about it, hoping these scenarios never actually occur. Or you could spend less than $200 total and own every single item we've discussed today. $200 for peace of mind that your family can function normally while others struggle with basic daily tasks. Start with the items that match your immediate needs. If you cook frequently, prioritize the kitchen tools. If you rely heavily on written communication for work, focus on the pencil sharpener and mechanical clock. If you live in an area where meat processing might become necessary, get that grinder while they're still available and affordable. Because here's what happens during actual emergencies. People panic and buy everything in sight, driving prices through the roof and creating shortages of basic supplies. The folks who prepared in advance get what they need at normal prices. The folks who wait until crisis hits pay 10 times more for inferior alternatives, if they can find anything at all. The choice is yours, but time isn't on your side. Every day you delay is another day closer to finding out the hard way whether you're ready or not. These 10 simple tools represent more than just household items. They represent freedom from the fear that keeps most people awake at night, wondering what they'd do if everything stopped working. Your neighbors will be standing in their driveways, staring at dead cars and dark houses, completely helpless because they bet everything on a system that failed them when they needed it most. But you'll be inside making fresh coffee, cooking real meals, and keeping your family fed and functioning while the rest of the world figures out what just happened. That's not luck. That's preparation. And preparation is just another word for caring enough about the people you love to think past tomorrow. So ask yourself this question. If the lights went out tonight and never came back on, would your family be okay? Really think about your answer, because that answer determines everything that happens next.